So, is academia an industry? And I'm going to give you the short answer first so you can go about your day. But I also want to give you a lot more nuance. I am a business professor. I study a lot of this stuff. This is like strategy is pretty core to a lot of these questions. That's what I study. And I think so. My first answer, my direct answer is absolutely it's an industry. And absolutely it shows signs of all of those, um, what you might expect from an industry. So, what exactly is an industry? So, here's my loose recollection. I'm sure that there's going to be people that study this that is going to tear this apart. But basically, it's a collection of companies that are pursuing similar product categories. And I think, like, if you were to look at the production of knowledge as a product category, I think you can easily define this as an industry. I don't know. There's an industry code that that the government uses. It's called NAICS, I believe is the industry code. And essentially, the government, the tax code in the United States defines various different industries. So I'm pretty sure. So definitely like educational and that there is an industry for education. Would broadly the academy be part of that? I think it's sort of inclusive, but when we talk about that is we're looking and talking about the production of knowledge. So the creation, first of all, it's the creation of knowledge, but also the production of knowledge. And both of those things, sort of the creation and distribution of knowledge. And both of those things for sure are an industry. But here's the nuance answer that I think is a little bit more challenging is that it is um it is the general purpose engine of much of the economy. This is the way that most people would look at it if they study it. Because at the heart, and I'm a little bit biased because I study knowledge and learning and things like that. At the heart of what we are trying to do is to identify new information, new knowledge that people have not understood. And generally, that is at the heart. And I think almost everybody that studies this stuff would say that this is the key reason why we have various different industries, why we have production, and why we have efficiency is because of the knowledge that's produced, right? So it's critically important often um, to have, first of all, more knowledge that is accurate, more creative knowledge that is or pushing boundaries. All of these things are critically important for the production of anything, right? Like it's often the spur of economic productivity comes when there's a new idea, a new um, something that we never thought about, and it's become industrialized like early on. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, about 150 years ago, it wasn't nearly as industrialized, and so we would see spikes every once in a while of economic prosperity. But a lot of the stuff, if you start breaking it down, you start looking at new companies that have spurred off, it's as a direct result of new information that people have identified within the academic arena, or somebody that has listened or paid attention to something that was going on in the academic world. There's a lot that's tied in, and it may not. You might be thinking like, yeah, what about things like construction and things like that? Well, somebody's got to make the machinery to to get the stuff going. A lot of that depends on physics and our understanding of physics, right? Like there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you forget about that is improved industrial production in all these areas that you might think about. Think about heavy equipment, right? Need to understand hydraulics and all that kind of stuff, um, which you wouldn't understand without the production of knowledge, the creation of knowledge that exists today. It is so tied to industrial production that we often forget about that, right? Like we forget and how far we've actually come. And I think that's like the key is so one of the biases that we tend to have, I don't know if this is like our legit bias, a psychological bias, but we tend to focus on costs when we can't see the benefits. And the reason is that costs are easy to measure. They are often very immediate. We feel that, and we often don't see the long-term benefit of something that's really amorphous. Um, knowledge, the creation of knowledge. um, there is a tremendous amount of benefit that you often don't see that is hard to put your fingers on. I mean, I struggle with that all the time. People listen to the stuff that I talk about, and man, it's a struggle in my own head of reconciling, is this worth it? You know, all of that kind of stuff because you see the cost, you see that you feel the pain, the immediate pain of doing it, but you don't see the benefits, like reading a book, right? Like when you read a book, man, it sucks. I never it's the odd book that I'm enthusiastic about, unless you're, one of those people that really like to read. I don't like to read so much. And when I read books, it's almost always a pain. But after I get this often epiphanies from the books that I read, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. I would never have thought of that before. Or listening to this podcast. It's kind of a little bit boring for some people, but after you'll be thinking about the world differently. So I think like, all of these things, because there's often, it's easy to measure the costs. We could see those things. Often there is value that we can't explain. And here's the thing that makes it even more challenging is that because many of us know that there's tremendous amount of benefit there, and that benefit is really important. There's scammy people and scammy institutions, scammy businesses that want to enter it and take advantage of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that are being taken advantage of in very, very high cost programs that offer very little benefit, direct benefit immediately. Now, there's lots of programs that are really expensive, but they offer benefit because it's very high quality education. And you don't know what is high quality often. It's very confusing to people what high quality actually is. Put your fingers on this because it's amorphous. So all of this combined, is academia an industry? Absolutely it is. And you start looking at it and you start looking at how often large it is, how big of an impact it has. Um, you might really take a step back and say, why aren't we calling this, you know, more central? I think a lot of economies, a lot of countries that have done a very good job of harnessing it, um, have prospered tremendously from it. But again, it's amorphous, right? The benefit is almost always amorphous. The cost is very real. And we don't know what is quality. We know that there's like people that, try to cheat the system and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very difficult to capture some of these effects. Um, you know, would I would I encourage countries to pursue and invest in academia? Absolutely, right? Like I would get people to think about that a lot more, but can it be done efficiently? That's like a big question for me in terms of what you can do. But I think what you could do is tie it closer to, um, you know, just making sure that there's a pretty high standard. But all of this is extraordinarily hard to do. Right? Like when you get into the weeds of it and you start thinking about it, it becomes far more difficult than you thought. It's not clear, right? Like the simple idea of like, why don't you just tie it to mathematics and, the sciences? Um, give discounts for that kind of stuff or medicine or whatever in terms of, increasing the productivity of a nation by doing that. But we forget like art and design and the natural worlds is incredibly important to this combination too, right? That's often you can see the world's largest companies rely a lot on design and art. And so, all of these are really, really profound, difficult questions to wrestle with. Um, and hence it's very interesting. But, is academia an industry? Yes. Is it complicated? Are there people that, cheat and, is there politics and all that kind of stuff? Yes. Um, can we make it better? Big question mark there. Um, I don't know. Is it complicated? Yes. So that's a long answer to this complicated question. People might argue with me, but I think in general, academia definitely is an industry. All right. Take care. Have a wonderful day.